If you've noticed your eyes tire faster than they used to, reading in dim light feels harder, screens feel sharper on your eyes by evening, or your night vision just isn't what it was. You're not imagining it, and you're not alone. This is one of the quieter parts of aging, the kind nobody warns you about until it's already happening. Here's what's interesting. Research suggests there's a small addition you can make to a drink you probably already have most mornings tea that may support the parts of your eyes most affected by age. Not a treatment, not a miracle, just a simple, research-aware habit some people build into their morning without much effort at all. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. That's on purpose. Because there isn't just one, there are three, and the order they come in matters. The last one might surprise you. The roadmap! Over the next few minutes, we'll walk through 3 ingredients, each one tied to eye health in a different way, each one easy to add to a warm drink. The first is familiar. The second is one you've probably eaten without knowing its connection to your eyes. The third is the one most people have never even considered, and it happens to be one of the most prized ingredients in the world. Stick with all 3, because each one builds on the last, and the final one ties everything together. Insight Section 1, Goji Berries. Let's start with goji berries, since they're the most well-known of the 3 when it comes to eye health. Fix applied, goji. Berries contain 2 plant compounds, zeaxanthin and lutein. Once eaten, research suggests these compounds are absorbed and gradually accumulate in the retina, specifically in the macula, the part of the eye responsible for sharp central vision. As we age, the natural levels of these compounds in the eye tend to decline, and that decline is often discussed in connection with age-related vision changes. Research suggests that dietary sources of lutein and zeaxanthin may help support macular health over time. This isn't a cure, and it isn't instant. Think of it less like a switch and more like a slow, cumulative habit, similar to how consistent sleep or hydration compounds over months, not days. Adding goji berries to tea is simple. A small handful, dried, about a tablespoon, and steeped directly in hot water for 5 to 10 minutes creates a mild, slightly sweet, earthy tea on its own, or works well folded into a black or green tea base. Some people let the berries soften and eat them afterward rather than discarding them, which some believe extends the intake of the compounds involved. That's ingredient 1, but goji berries alone aren't the full picture, which is where the second ingredient comes in, and why researchers have started paying more attention to something you may already have in your freezer. Insight Section 2, Wild Blueberries. Wild blueberries don't get talked about in the context of eye health as often as they should. And that's worth pausing on, because the research interest here is arguably just as compelling as goji berries, if not more layered. Blueberries are dense in anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their deep blue-purple color. These compounds are of interest to researchers, largely because of their antioxidant activity. Fix applied, trimmed, and the eye, especially the retina, happens to be one of the more oxidation-prone tissues in the body, constantly exposed to light and constantly processing visual information. Fix applied, inserted beat. Think about how much your eyes actually do in a single day. Hours of screens, changing light, constant focus shifts. That workload adds up, which is part of why researchers have taken a closer look at antioxidant-rich foods like wild blueberries. Some research has explored whether anthocyanins may support microcirculation, the small blood vessels that feed the retina, and whether that circulatory support could play a role in maintaining visual function over time. It's worth being clear that this research is still developing, and the mechanisms aren't fully settled. This isn't a closed case with guaranteed outcomes, but an active and reasonably promising area of nutritional science. There's also a practical reason wild blueberries matter here. They complement goji berries rather than duplicating their effect. Where goji berries are concentrated in macular-specific compounds, blueberries bring a broader antioxidant and circulatory angle, which is part of why some people include both rather than choosing one over the other. To add wild blueberries to your tea ritual, a small handful, fresh or frozen, can be steeped alongside your tea leaves, or blended into a small amount of hot water separately and added to your cup. Frozen wild blueberries, specifically, are often noted as retaining comparable nutrient density to fresh, since they're typically frozen shortly after harvest. 2 ingredients in, and already there's a pattern. Small additions, cumulative benefit, no promises of dramatic change. But the third ingredient is where this gets genuinely interesting, because it's not something most people would ever think to add to tea at all. Insight Section 3, Saffron. Saffron is the most expensive spice in the world by weight, more valuable than gold in equivalent quantities, and for most of its history, it's been associated with flavor and color in cooking, not eye health. But over the past couple of decades, that's started to shift. Saffron contains crocan and safranal, compounds that have drawn research interest, specifically related to the macula, and to visual function in aging eyes. Some studies have explored saffron's potential role in supporting retinal health, and researchers have looked into whether it may offer benefits worth further investigation for age-related visual changes. It's important to be precise here. This is an emerging area, not an established treatment, and it does not replace medical care for diagnosed eye conditions. What makes saffron notable isn't just the compounds themselves. It's that this is genuinely underexplored territory to most people, which is part of why it's saved for last. Most people have never connected saffron with vision at all, and that gap between how prized the ingredient is and how little known this particular use is what makes it feel like a real discovery, rather than another item on a supplement list. Adding saffron to tea only requires a few threads, literally 3 to 5 strands, steeped in hot water for 10 minutes, before adding your tea leaves, or steeped directly alongside them. Saffron is potent even in tiny amounts, so more isn't better here. A little goes a long way, both in flavor and in cost efficiency. Closing, reassurance. So, goji for the macula specifically, wild blueberries for broader antioxidant and circulatory support, and saffron for a more targeted, if less familiar, connection to visual function. 3 ingredients, 1 warm drink, a few minutes of preparation. It's worth saying plainly, none of this cures anything, restores lost vision, or treats any diagnosed eye condition. If you have a diagnosed eye condition or notice sudden vision changes, that's a conversation for an eye care professional, not a tea recipe. What this is instead is a small, low-effort daily habit. The kind that on its own won't transform anything overnight, but layered in alongside everything else you're already doing for your health. Maybe a reasonable, research-aware addition to your routine. Sometimes the most meaningful changes aren't dramatic. They're just consistent. And a cup of tea each morning is about as low a bar as consistency gets. If this was useful, there's more where this came from, and I'd love to have you back for it.